it's a busy time of year, a challenging year to do it too. But we're glad to be able to get around. And Congressman was with us up at Glenwood this morning as well. And you were here in this area a couple weeks ago.
Down in
as
Hamburg
well.
and up here, yeah.
And certainly hearing some challenges with the water. There's a lot of other things going on as well. But we're game to talk about whatever you want to talk about. We'd love to hear things that should happen, things that are happening that shouldn't happen. That sometimes that's a longer list than the first list. Maybe just quick and dirty on some things. Certainly in Department of Ag, we've got a lot of things going on. Certainly budget stuff. We're still hoping to get a budget by the end of this week, when our money runs out by the end of this week. So we're looking at a budget. They've actually agreed to an ag and natural resources budget that's another about a $400,000 cut for the Department of Ag. We are down, 4 years ago we had about 400 people. We're down to 332 now. This won't be a big additional cut, but we'll probably be a little bit smaller a year from now than what we are right now. Mostly just not refilling positions, and it's kind of all across the board, so certainly continue to see some losses in the conservation area. If we have, I think, a little over 20 offices out there without state soil secretaries. We're down probably 8 or 10 in technicians from where we were 4 years ago. And then pretty much everything else that we do is down a little bit from where we were a few years ago. It's working, it's challenging, but state budget and federal budget, we got some times we got to look at making sure that we're getting everything out of those dollars that we can. And we're going to stretch them as far as we can as well. So hopefully we have a budget and won't have a shutdown at the state level, and hopefully that'll all work. But
just thank the Secretary for inviting me to come along today, and to, like I said, I was down a couple of weeks ago, and it is, as a farmer myself, it is such a tragedy to see what was a great crop now be underwater, and so much of the channel and on the Missouri, obviously, and the threat that it still holds, and they're very concerned, obviously, about ongoing and the pressure that's going to be applied to the temporary levees for a long period of time yet. That's a great concern, obviously. I serve on the Appropriations Committee on Ag, and Chairman of Transportation and HUD, and on Homeland Security. So a couple things that I'm very concerned about in Homeland Security, to make sure that FEMA has the money that they need to take care of when this all gets settled down, and we see what the damages are, and to make sure that we have proper funds. It's going to be different in that we're going to pay for it rather than just charge it, but it will be taken care of, certainly on the crop insurance part of it, to make sure that there's flexibility, and not so much as far as prevented planting, because most everything was planted before it drowned out, but to make sure that the funding is there and the flexibility. So if there are problems in that regard, please let me know. Certainly the funding for the Army Corps of Engineers, and to make sure that they're responsive, and from everything that I've heard, outside of the questions as far as management earlier, but certainly they've I think done as much as possible to try and help as far as the concerns and problems that we have. But anything that we can do to motivate them to do the right thing is, let us know. That's why we're here, and why we're listening, and that's what I want to do, is listen to you folks and see what you need.
So love to have thoughts. Tell us, maybe start off in, we'd love to have this start off in flooding situations. Anybody have things that need to happen that are not happening the way that they need to?
Oh, come on, guys. Huh? It's
I got
perfect.
it's tied to
Okay.
it, but a different comment. I was county extension for 43 years. So that's
Wow.
my background, the whole company here in this county. The current situation reminds me so much of the farm crisis of the 80s. At that time, we had people that was fine and people that were in problems. And we're gonna have people that are in problems this time. And it's not gonna be, when the water goes down, it's not gonna be over with. It's gonna be the mental and physical stress that will go on next year. And that's my concern of how we work and take care of that. Yeah, FEMA can take care of replacing the shed today, but they're gonna need to be help to those individuals down the line is where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Challenge is it's hard to even know what that is, certainly yet, but and you're right, you're probably across the fence, depending on where that water goes. Some guys may have one of their best years, and the other guys may have one of their worst.
Yeah, and it's gonna push into next year, you know.
Well, there's no question that the soil, I mean, are you going to even have a crop next year on the soil that's underwater with no organic material left under, being sitting underwater for a year, no plant growth, nothing to the bacteria in the soil, everything. It's you wonder what the sand silting is going to be, all of those things. So
No
yeah.
oxygen in the soil.
Right,
that's-
right,
For
exactly.
months at a
It's-
time.
it's
Months.
that-
It's not just
and-
like a short-term flood. I mean, this
Right.
sits there and
But we're gonna need support for
Right.
those problems,
yeah.
those individuals in the future. is what
Yeah.
I'm
What,
saying.
I mean, in what kinds of
They're gonna need,
things?
some of them are gonna need some counseling.
Yeah.
You know, how do you work through this situation? Well, we can get you a farm loan. Well, it has to be repaid.
Right.
Right.
Those types of things. If you're going through a tornado, the next day you go out, you start picking up pieces and you start rebuilding your life. They're not gonna be able to rebuild their life start to rebuild their life before this fall at the earliest.
At the earliest, yeah.
Those types of things. We have people right now that, might buy a house in town, but they're waiting to see what happens. And there's gonna be a population shift out of this too. And it's already happened. I think we've got kids that the family moved to Nebraska City and so won't be in school in Iowa. Those other types of repercussions that go on. You have businesses that will not be reestablished. So it's those types of things.
Yeah.
We can say, well, we did this and this, but it's down the road
Right.
is what I'm driving at. And in the farm crisis, a lot of those people they started to get things settled when the bank or the loan agency forced them to have a sale.